Victor, you've got more lives than a cat. Hello everyone, I'm Dan the Man. Well, like last time, I wasn't able to get this one out as early as I would have liked, so I will once again be covering up to the nominations. I got a lot to talk about, so let's begin. First of all, the nominations of Victor and Paul. Honestly, those were dodgy choices due mostly to why they put them up, but at least for Natalie and James, it seemed like a right choice. Where things got bad for the duo was how they handled it once Paul came down. When Corey went up, it seemed he was just there as a pawn, and Victor was definitely going. But to Victor and Paul's credit, they hatched a plan to pretend to play off each other, and it came damn close to working. A lot closer than I would have thought, and actually, a lot closer than the episodes would have you believe. They showed James and Natalie wavering on voting out Victor or Corey, and did show James' boneheaded move of telling Paul, with Corey in the room and Nicole in earshot, that Natalie wanted Victor to stay, which you said he was throwing himself under the bus, but in reality James actually threw Natalie under the bus. But what was worse, and what they didn't show, is Paul and Victor were so convincing that James almost bought into their act. So much so that when the feeds went down a couple hours before the live show, it seemed like James had decided to vote out Corey. And according to conversations in the feeds, an hour before going live, James pulled his usual move of telling the person he was going to blindside they were going, and actually told Nicole and Corey he was going to vote out Corey, which if you noticed, was likely the reason for Nicole looking so deflated in the live show. But James wavered for the 2000th time and changed his mind at the last second once more, and ended up voting out Victor anyway. He made two huge mistakes there. The first one was telling Nicole and Corey he was going to stab them in the back. But the second mistake was after telling them and showing Nicole that for all the loyalty she showed him, he was perfectly willing to stab her in the back. He then didn't do it, thus pissing off Victor and Paul in the process. So James now showed 4 people he couldn't be trusted, which meant even if someone hadn't had the chance to come back in, he was at least going to have 3 people pissed at him. Which brings us to the head of household and the buyback in the game. And as we saw, Victor won his way back in. So James ended up showing his true colors to 4 people, and none of them were gone by the end of the night. When Nicole won head of household, I was sure Victor and Paul were going to go right back on the block, but in hindsight, I shouldn't have been. People are criticizing Nicole for not putting up Paul and Victor and targeting Paul, and that she's just being personal by wanting to vote out Michelle. And because most fans like James and don't like Nicole, they're all over her for her horrible move. But in truth, I don't think it was that horrible. Here's the thing. James showed Nicole that he can't be trusted. He flat out told her he was going to break his loyalty to her and get out her number one ally after saying all week he wouldn't. He not only showed that, but then he didn't actually do it, which showed not only does he not have any loyalty, but he is wishy-washy and unable to commit to a decision. So why would Nicole want to work with him going forward? Why would any of them want to work with him going forward? James pissed off 4 people and showed he didn't have their backs, so why wouldn't they team up together? Honestly, James is lucky Nicole didn't put him and Natalie up on the block despite the deal. James came in preaching he had proven to be loyal, but the reality is James is only loyal to one type of person, the type that he thinks he has a chance of getting romantic with. So unless Nicole planned to seduce James, which obviously she wasn't planning to do, she had zero reason to think James was loyal to her, and he showed that. Which brings me to talking about James throwing the challenge. In short, it was an idiotic move. He literally had just told Nicole he was about to turn on her, so why was he so sure she would honor a deal with him just because he changed his mind about turning on her at the last second? He wanted to compete next week, and on paper that's fair logic, but the truth is James has only ever won endurance comp where his size is an advantage, exactly like this week's head of household. There's little chance there'll be another one like that next week, so James threw the only type of comp he can win, so he can play in a comp which will most surely be any other type of comp which he has never won. That's not playing to your strengths. And given James' track record, why would he trust anyone to honor a deal made in an endurance competition? I mean, if Nicole had put him up, she would not be doing anything he hasn't already done every other time he was in that situation in the last 2 seasons. Yes, he did honor it, but James will now most likely lose Michelle, which I think he and Natalie were counting on to win the next head of household if it was a mental competition. But she won't be there because Nicole has no reason to want Michelle to say, so she's trying to get her out. So James has lost what in reality was one of the only 2 people in the house still on his side. He just doesn't know that yet. So did Nicole make the right choice? I'm in the minority, but I think she did. She has no reason to trust James anymore. 0. Victor, Paul, and even Corey are way more likely to win the next head of household than James or Natalie, and Paul and Victor are more likely to honor their word if they win. In fact, based on everything the feeds had shown up to the nomination, Victor and Paul are all in with Nicole and Corey. They don't trust James because he literally just voted one of them out, and Nicole and Corey have given them no reason not to trust them. People can overthink things and change their mind, but I expect if they win next week, they will 90% put up Natalie and James and will not turn on Nicole and Corey. Yes, if James and Natalie win, Victor and Paul with no other options might rat out Nicole, but who's to say James will believe them if Nicole then denies it? James trusts Nicole even after he all but stabbed her in the back last week, so he has blinders on as to how little he should trust her. And if Nicole does vote out Paul, and Natalie or James win head of household, there is at best a 50-50% chance James wouldn't then decide to go after Corey and break up the only other couple left. Sure, he had a deal with them, but this is Big Brother. You can bounce checks. Tell me you didn't hear James's voice when I said that. We all know he could easily turn on Nicole because he in fact almost did. So who will ultimately go? Well, it will come down to Nicole breaking the tie, most likely, and I think that she will keep her word, especially if the veto doesn't end up getting played. Even if James didn't expect it, he knows Nicole wants Michelle out, so he likely won't get suspicious. And even if he does, at that point, him being mad at her is a lesser evil, since he likely won't win the next head of household. Natalie might be more suspicious, but James really doesn't listen to her. He's old-fashioned and feels he should be the king in the relationship, and would rather Natalie was the damsel he had to protect than an equal whose instincts are as valuable as his. So he probably wouldn't listen to her even if she does catch on. And that's assuming James doesn't vote out Michelle. And if Nicole chooses to tell him that she's going to vote out Michelle, James will probably cut her loose so as not to upset Paul and Victor, even though both of them are already over him, and all he would actually do is possibly lose Michelle's vote in the jury. But Michelle is not the one he is romantic with, so in the end, he will not be loyal to her, even if he probably should. So barring her winning the veto, Michelle's number is probably up. Even she seems to suspect that Nicole will not keep her in the game when she has no real reason to want to. Before I go, I have one more thing I'd like to talk about before I close out this video. When they showed Paulie in the jury house, I was shocked that he came off looking as horrible as he did. Not because I was surprised he acted like that. That's the exact same way he acted on the feeds, especially after his game blew up. But I am shocked that Big Brother showed it, as the episodes have gone out of their way to mostly protect him. Paulie's father has even gone so far as to claim Big Brother slandered Paulie by showing Bridget's being so hard on him when it had nothing to do with the game. My opinion on that? Fuck Paulie and his father. Paulie signed a contract, and he is hardly the first person to be attacked when going into jury. When Matt was in season 12 and went to the jury and came clean about lying about his wife being sick, Rachel all but told him that he was a horrible person, but no one whined about BB slandering him by showing someone daring to dislike him. It had nothing to do with the game as a cop-out excuse. Plenty of Paulie's insults and attacks were personal and not game-related. Big Brother is not obligated to protect him, although I'm sure because he was Golden Boy Cody's brother and asked to participate, the family expected that they would. But if Paulie wanted Big Brother to make him look good, maybe he shouldn't have refused to play when things stopped going his way like a big baby. And with that out of the way, I'm out of here until next video. I'll do my best to actually come back after the eviction this time, and I'll be giving my thoughts on both the veto competition and the eviction. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan the Man, and I'll see you next time.